Hey guys, welcome back. If you're new or simply not yet subscribed, I'm Brittany, and definitely make sure to hit the subscribe button. Before we dive in, I just want to remind you guys of the mystery box giveaway. All you have to do to enter is like the video, make sure you're subscribed, and comment down below what you are going to be for Halloween, and then you're entered. Drawing will be held on Halloween, and you can enter on every single video that I upload all through October, so go ahead and check out those other videos as well. With that being said, let's dive into our topic for the day. So, New Orleans is a mystical city filled with vibrant culture, rich history, and some mystery. The city was founded back in 1718 by the French and then later came into Spanish control before reverting back to French rule for a brief period of time and then finally becoming part of the United States in 1803. French folklore would introduce the revenant term to New Orleans, which was a term that broadly encompassed the undead, which included vampires. These revenants were said to return from the grave to haunt the living. Large thirst for human blood. Spanish folklore would talk about El Vampiro, and this was a creature that lurked in the shadow and preyed on unsuspecting victims. Vampire myths are widespread across Europe, with the oldest ones originating in Slavic and Romanian folklore. These legends were brought to the New World by immigrants who had settled in New Orleans during the 18th and 19th centuries. According to Slavic culture, vampires were the cause of evil beings and witches. However, they could also be created by a malevolent spirit who was possessing a corpse or someone who was bitten by another vampire, which is pretty prevalent in modern day imaging, like Hollywood imaging of vampires today. Vampire legends would start out as these monstrous, grotesque beings that preyed on humans. But nowadays, vampires are seen as these mesmerizing creatures who are attractive in nature and feed off human blood, but essentially we just accept it because they're having a hard time or because of how they look. It's very glamorized, the immortality, the perfection of them. In movies like Twilight, which I loved Twilight. I was 100% Team Edward. And out of the Cullen family, Alice was my favorite. But also in TV shows like The Vampire Diaries, which is an amazing series. If you have not watched The Vampire Diaries, the originals, what's the other one? They have one more spinoff. But they are all great. I was mostly Team Stefan, but I flipped back and forth a lot between Stefan and Damon. Because Damon does have good qualities. So I don't know. But again, it gets you invested. It makes you want to be a vampire. And I'm pretty positive that the show The Originals, which is a spin-off of The Vampire Diaries, actually took place in New Orleans. And the originals were the original vampires. The first vampires to ever have existed. New Orleans have been a hotspot of, that's Freya. New Orleans has been a hotspot of vampire activity for quite some time. There have been numerous accounts of people who claim to have been vampires, and one of those accounts are the Carter brothers. John and Wayne Carter would arrive in New Orleans before the Great Depression, and they both got jobs working at the docks at night. People thought, these two guys, they're fine, nothing's wrong. But a few years later, a dark truth would come to light. In 1932, a young girl would stumble upon St. Anne Street with her wrists bleeding. A nearby officer would notice her and come to her aid. While her wounds were being treated at a nearby hospital, she told the police officers that had helped her that two brothers had abducted her and were feeding off of her blood. But the brothers didn't do a great job with her restraints because ultimately she was able to escape while they went to work. She also told police that she wasn't the only one in that home. claimed that there were dozens of captives. The girl led the police to the location where she was being held, which was on the corner of Royal and St. Anne. Police would then determine that the home belonged to the Carter brothers, and inside they would find this horrifying sight. 15 more bodies would be discovered, and only 4 people were found alive, which included the girl who escaped. All of the victims would have the same cuts on their wrists, and it seemed as if the brothers would leave early in the morning, just before daybreak, and return every night just after dark. When they would return home, they would undress the victims' wounds, reopen them with a knife, let the blood spill over, catch it in a cup, drink from that cup until they were full, and then redress the wounds. They didn't really have any thoughts to the care of these victims. They were simply just a food source to them. The brothers had no idea that this girl had escaped. There are 2 versions of how they were caught. One version says that the police had set up a trap for them at their home, so when they came home from work, they were caught. Another version says they weren't caught till the next day at their job at the docks. But regardless, both times they were caught, and both times they immediately confessed to everything. Then they proceeded to tell the police that they were vampires. That's my washer. And they begged the police to kill them. So whether the police believed they were actually vampires or not are kind of irrelevant. They were tried as serial killers, and they would be executed. Then they would be buried in a vault in one of the city's above ground cemeteries. However, years later, the vault would be opened to place another body in it, and there was no sign of the Carter brothers. No bodies. Since then, residents have claimed to see people that look just like the Carter brothers walking around New Orleans. That's my washer. I've tried to quiet it. I'm sorry. So were they actually vampires that survived execution? Another vampire that is said to have haunted New Orleans was Jacques Saint Germain. He was this mysterious, wealthy Frenchman who came to New Orleans in the early 20th century. And he would do odd things. It definitely got him noticed. He would never eat in public, and he would throw these lavish parties where all he would ingest was wine. Saint Germain would just disappear one day. And when a woman escaped his home, claiming that he had bitten her neck and tried to drink her blood, rumors would start to spread about him being a vampire. And when police investigated his home, they found absolutely no signs of food, but they found several bottles of wine mixed with blood. He also had a resemblance to the legendary Count Saint Germain, who was a European nobleman who was rumored to also have been an immortal vampire and alchemist. So that obviously just fueled the accusations of him being a vampire. Oh, maybe Jacques Saint Germain was truly a vampire. Honestly, the fact that he disappeared and they found wine mixed with blood, and there's accounts of other people looking like him, this is one of the ones where I'm like, maybe he could have been. If you were a vampire, why would you go and tell people that you're a vampire? I mean, obviously, most people aren't going to believe you. But regardless, I feel like you don't just be like, oh, well, I'm a vampire. If you're the supernatural version, I guess. Anyways, another tale of vampires in New Orleans is derived from the Casket Girls. Okay, so, I don't know if you heard that, but it goes off a lot the last few days. I tried looking up to see if there's any accounts of it going off for other people, and I couldn't find anything. And and I had opened like the Spirit Talker app just to see. And this is, I'll put on the screen what I got. And it's very strange. I have a great grandmother that is, her name is actually Marguerite, but with the Spirit Talker app, it's like a voice box. So that would make sense for it to kind of translate into Margaret. So, I don't know. No, this is like being derailed from vampires, but it's also like, I was trying to put Freya back to sleep last night, and I felt like something was behind me. Like, I felt a large pressure. And then Freya just starts waving. I'm like, but she doesn't, she does wave a lot, but she don't always waves to something. So I was like, I don't like this. Anyways, let's dive back in. So the other tale of vampires is derived from the Casket Girls. The Casket Girls came to New Orleans from France in the early 18th century. And they were sent there to marry settlers and help populate the new colony. However, when they arrived, they brought something rather odd. They were small coffin-shaped chests that were said to contain their belongings. But some believed that there are more than just clothes in those chests. So the Ursuline convent was where they stayed when they arrived. And according to legend, the chests were stored in the attic, which would be later sealed with nails and blessed by a priest. It is widely believed the girls had brought vampires with them, and that the attic had been sealed to contain them. It's said that the Ursuline convent's attic still contains those coffins and thus vampires in it to this day. So today, New Orleans is home to a vampire community. This community contains two types of vampires. The Sanguinians, who consume small amounts of blood from willing donors, which I don't know where they're finding these people to donate their blood, because they feed off them. It's not even just like IV, it's literally like them opening a wound and sucking the blood out of them. And these vampires actually believe that they need these small amounts of blood to survive. Psychic vampires are the other version, and they believe that they can actually absorb energy from others. This was several years ago now, but it was the first psychic that I had ever went to, and she was like, oh, like, you have a gift. I want to do a guided meditation for you for free. So I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, like, we'll schedule it. So we scheduled it. I have never felt worse. Meditation is supposed to be this relaxing thing. And it, like, guys, I could barely see. I could barely function. I'm surprised I even made it home driving. It lasted several days. Like, I just felt like the life had been sucked out of me during a meditation. And when I met the other psychic that I'm friends with, she had explained to me that she was a psychic vampire. And, you know, there are psychic vampires that don't really know that they're draining your energy. But there's other ones that will do it purposely. But these ones are also, the ones in New Orleans are also said to be consent-based. So they will only take your energy if you allow them to, which I don't know why you would do that. The community is all about consent, safety, and mutual respect among its members. They are also very big into like donations and stuff. It's just very strange to me. I mean, as long as it's, you know, both parties are consensual, whatever, I guess. It's crazy because I had this typed up to do the article, and then I saw, I think it was like yesterday when I saw it, that Call Me Chris did a video about modern day vampires. And I was like, huh, like, that's interesting, because I had literally had this typed up to do. And she included a clip. I don't know what show it's from, but I had blocked this out of my memory. and like everything came back about me watching it. But it was this show that followed modern day vampires around and actually like showed that like this guy was explaining, you know, why they do what they do and how they do it. And like, I don't know, it's strange to me personally, but again, as long as no one's being hurt. But, you know, so there's obviously these vampires, but what about real vampires? Do you think that there's actually real vampires in New Orleans just wandering around and waiting for their next victim? Personally, I think that if there is, they probably would not be the ones advertising it. And I feel like New Orleans would be a good place for them to go because they have a vampire community, so no one's really gonna bat an eye. I mean, maybe if there's a bunch of people dying, that might, you know, trigger something, but let me know what you guys think about all of this. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. And if you have any paranormal encounters that you'd love to share with me, I would love to hear them. So go ahead and email me at brittanybriereghosts@gmail.com. Also, make sure that you like this video for me. Make sure you're subscribed. And until tomorrow, I love you guys. Bye.